Soldiers, sailors, airmen and women enlist in the armed forces for many reasons, including a sense of duty, patriotism, the adventure, travel, and adrenaline. When service members are injured or wounded and can no longer perform their military duties, they quickly find themselves removed from their team, no longer serving the purpose for which they trained.
I came back from Afghanistan in 2013, and it was kind of a trial and error of finding out, after the military, what's next in life.
Motorsports offers an opportunity to regain that sense of identity within a safe, fast-paced team environment, providing a renewed sense of purpose. Like in the military, in motorsports the goal is in accomplishing the mission, winning as a team, collectively celebrating the successes and supporting teammates through the losses. Operation Motorsport also offers virtual engagements and recovery opportunities through an iRacing league, engaging beneficiaries in a safe, competitive environment from the comfort and safety of their home. Operation Motorsport believes in the power of team, identity, and purpose.
Hello, this is Jason with Operation Motorsport. We'd like to introduce you to some of our beneficiaries who were active during the GT World Challenge SRO race at New Orleans Motorsport Park this past weekend.
This weekend I've been over here with Race Control, and it's basically been seeing behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz kind of thing, kind of get the people behind the curtain, see all the stuff that's actually happening, and what makes all these things on the track actually work, a central thing. And it is like being in a TOC, a Tactical Operations Center, in a deployment scenario, surprisingly. So you're in there and all these screens, all this activity, things are going 100 miles an hour, and everybody is juggling 7 things at once. Whenever there's any sort of race event, whether it's just laps that people are doing, or if it is an incident that's happening during a race or something like that, all of the things that happen that we see manifest themselves in terms of a race. These are things, and these are all the people who are pulling the strings and pulling the levers to make it all happen. So Operation Motorsport's all about having a team identity and purpose, and kind of restoring that for people who left the military like myself and no longer really have that sort of source for that. And this is a way to this has been a way for me to reinvigorate that kind of same part of me that otherwise I don't really get. It doesn't really scratch that itch. But it's meant a lot. It's meant a great deal to me to actually be able to kind of activate that part of my own brain and that part of my own self that otherwise is just kind of going dormant.
Race fans, and welcome to ProTV Sports coverage of the 5th round of the 6th season of Operation eMotorsport iRacing League, live from iRacing's virtual circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm your host, Rachel Wyford, joined tonight by my colleague in the booth, Derek Watson. Our producer this evening, as always, is Gary Sexton. He's using cameras created by the great Dougie Beard. We're out here in qualifying on track now. We're about to tick to qualifying, as you'll see, on the beautiful island here in the St. Lawrence Seaway. What is normally a park during most of the year becomes a racetrack occasionally, and, well, Derek, tell us more about it.
Well, you know, Rachel, this is a beautiful racetrack. Originally opened back in 1978. So we're going to zoom into Montreal, Quebec, Canada here and get a nice zoom-in view. It's a beautiful 14-turn track that hosts F1 racing and has hosted NASCAR racing in the past. So it's a 4.3-kilometer circuit that will pose many challenges for our drivers today.
Yeah, it certainly will. Definitely makes it an interesting circuit to run around. Now, don't forget, Operation eMotorsport iRacing League is a structured virtual racing series that brings together beneficiaries, veterans, military members, race car drivers and crews, and other supporters of the Foundation to compete in a virtual, friendly sports car racing environment. Operation Motorsport is a veteran-led and operated not-for-profit foundation based in Raleigh, North Carolina and Brighton, Ontario, serving American and Canadian service members and veterans. Its programs are based on 3 core values: team, identity, and purpose. Operation Motorsport supports the recovery of medically retiring or retired service members affected by military service through motorsport opportunities. Their motto is one at a time. We have multiple classes as always in today's race, and we'll tell you about those now. We have, of course, the Pro class in blue. Those are competitions license holders past and present in IMSA, SRO, CTC or other sanctioning bodies, or they have an iRacing road rating over 1900. The Open class, now Pros of course GT3, in GT4 we have the Open class. They are serving military members or veterans not involved in Operation Motorsport programs, staff, volunteers and supporters of Operation Motorsport, and then we have the beneficiaries. Those are members who are enrolled in Operation Motorsport's programs, and their participation costs are covered for them. You will also note we have PB as a class as well. Those are beneficiaries who are too darn fast to run in the GT4 field, so we stick them with the pros, and it becomes real fun. As you'll see in most of these races so far this season, they give them a run for their money. Derek, this track definitely does lend itself to the GT3 racing. Obviously, this is definitely not the Formula 1 layout we tend to see. It's the same layout, but it's not the Formula 1 curbing. The curbs around here are definitely more like the old NASCAR curbs. They're big.
Yeah, they are big, Rachel. And, you know, the benefit to these drivers being in GT3s and GT4s is they're able to use those curbs to a certain amount of extent, unlike other iRacing events we see using the prototypes where if you touch the curb, it's really, you know, just day over for your car. So these guys will get away with using some of the curbs as this track goes on. And there's a couple long straights where they'll be able to get some speed up here as well.
Yeah, they certainly will, of course, and we do need to have a stop tonight, of course, which will be interesting with how the pit lane works here, feeding out into the outside of Turn 2, but that'll be something for these drivers to work out. Typically, we see them all going in around the 20-minute mark in this 30-minute race, so it's very much a stop-and-go affair. We don't expect tyres, although Circuit Villeneuve can be hard on tyres, so we will see if anyone chooses to take maybe a pair of fronts, just to give the car some extra turn, which could be useful. Now, a lot of high-speed sections here, Derek. I think that's going to be really our passing opportunity as well as into the chicanes.
Yeah, those long straights can provide that little bit of drafting opportunity you find in a GT3 car. It'll also be the best spot to get around the quote-unquote slower traffic. You know, part of the race drivers meeting earlier, you know, the directors did remind the GT4s, you know, you are the slower class. Just let the GT3s get around you, be predictable, and they'll do so. And that long straight between 12 and 13, that's a good spot. And then between 7 and 8, that's probably the other best spot to get around that lap traffic.
It absolutely is, and well, we'll have to see how they do this, of course. Matt Smotherman setting the fastest time so far, 1 minute 35.066. And you'll hear more about him later because he is our beneficiary spotlight tonight. So you'll get to find out about his involvement in the Operation Motorsport programs. But in the beneficiary class and our GT4 overall, Greg Meismer, the beneficiary driver, is currently top dog there with a 143.1. Nick Milario is leading the open class there with a 144.5. So huge gap for Meismer leading those GT4 fields. Our fastest non-pro beneficiary, Chris Walsh, is on a 1:35.166, so 1/10 between the two of them.
Yeah, it's always fun to see leagues like this, Rachel, where you have such close times in your qualifying. It means these guys work hard. We heard them earlier during practice working together to see where they could find more time and more speed. So not surprised to see this all going that well for them.
Yeah, we'll have to see that for sure. You know, I do like this track, by the way, even though it's on the older end of some of iRacing circuits. Obviously, doesn't host the same racing it used to when this was scanned, but one of our team, Cameron Obenon, who takes care of our social media, pointed out the Dodge Dart, the 2013 Dodge Dart advertising on the track, which is a real throwback. I love that, personally. And of course, we talk about it being scanned for the Xfinity cars. That was back when it was the Nationwide series.
Yeah, there was some. I think it's fair to say some controversial races here in the Xfinity series. I think that's maybe a controversial ending might be the best way to say it, Rachel. But yeah, this is a beautiful track. You know, as you said, it's on an island. It's a beautiful scenery all around it. Remember the camera shots that ESPN did for the series was just beautiful, and you see all the water on the sides, and yeah, it's a great place.
But don't forget, this place, of course, is on Ile Notre Dame, of course, was originally the site of the World Fair that was hosted here in Canada, in Montreal. And you'll see a lot of the actual buildings here are from, when this whole park was just built for the fair. So you'll see all these various pieces of beautiful Canadian architecture located around here. Really set it's in a very unique setting, of course. Now, we mentioned it's hosted, you know, the Nationwide series. It also had the Canadian NASCAR series. We've had
the Penty series, yeah.
Rolex. We've had World Sports Car Championships. Champ Car came here. Formula One has, of course, been here many, many times, which is a fantastic track for that. I absolutely love that. My favorite, I think, was... Now, this is going to age me a little bit, but I think it was 2011 F1 Grand Prix here. The one where it rained for about 5, 6, maybe 7 hours during that race. They had a huge red flag period. I believe David Coulthard commented on a duck for at least 10 minutes. It's a piece of filling masterwork from a commentator.
Yeah, and you know, the fun thing that you mentioned that I don't want to let pass by, you mentioned the I won't say it as nice as you did, the Ile Notre Dame name. That was the name of this track until 1982. This was, of course, now it has the name it has, but that I almost like the Ile Notre Dame. I can't even say it. The Ile Notre Dame name more than the one we have currently. But yeah, up until 82, that's when I was born. So wow, that was a long time ago.
As a child,
do the math, I guess, kids.
Myself, I can sympathize. It's Ile, like Isle, like
yeah, there you go.
French Ile, because it's the island of Notre Dame. So Ile rather than Isle. Yeah, we're learning. We're learning today. We'll do coloring in next. It's gonna be fantastic.
Like a Schoolhouse Rock episode.
Yes. Yeah,
it's a beautiful track, and it's in terms of road courses we see, you know, in iRacing, Rachel, it's probably in some ways one of the simpler road courses. Only big wreck there in practice. We saw that. Oh my gosh!
Ooh,
as I was going to say, one of the easier tracks, and then that happened. 14 corners, but they're pretty spread out here. A couple long straights, and a couple of them are pretty simple chicanes. So I think in the terms of the tracks the series visits, I mean, obviously there was Daytona to start. We've been to COTA. We've been to VIR at times, and for Operation eMotorsports. This is probably, in my opinion, one of the simpler road courses that they're going to visit throughout the season.
In terms of driving it, yes. In terms of racing it, no. Because this is narrow, it's tight, and it's twisty, which makes it let's call it an Irish dance in a phone booth. You're on each other's toes all the time. It gets real crowded at this track real fast. And my most memorable experience here amongst all the cars in the sim have been the Nationwide cars, the Xfinity cars. This is the one place in iRacing where I experienced hardcore wheel hop with tire degradation, because this place is brutal on your brakes, brutal on your tires, and you are constantly watching every single direction because there are cars everywhere around you. We will see a lot of lapping today, and if you cannot cope with moving through lap traffic or being lapped, you will not win this race. But I digress. We are moving on now to the start of things. We're going to get our qualifying order up in just a second as we get our grid about to form up. I think basically everyone's put their lap times in as well. Maybe. Yes, we have.
Here we go.
Matt Smotherman is leading the way for the GT3 field, with Chris. We'll just call them the GT3 field for everyone's sake here. Chris Walsh in second, Martin Wallace in third, and Nelson fourth, with Joe Stiffel and Jesse Elliott bringing up the rear there with Scott Andrews behind them. For the GT4s, it is going to be Greg Meismer, although we've got Tyler Gillimet and Hunter Reeve, who are technically beneficiaries but pro beneficiaries. Then we have Greg Meismer and Nick Melorano, Felipe Carrillo, Matt Yote, Brian Winker, Kyle Smith, Jake Porter, Rick Haslett, Brian Knight, and Elliot Whitfield. Chris Ramirez always enters, but he's the organizer. He doesn't race.
You know,
That's the secret between us.
yeah, Rachel, one thing I'll say about this track and the beauty of it in iRacing specifically, it has a short pace lap. Oh my gosh, as someone who does road racing, isn't that amazing, by the way? Just to have they're going to line up here between, I guess, 11 and 12, more so on the 12 side, and just come down the long straight, 13, 14, and they're going to go. Man, isn't that nice when we find a road course on iRacing where we're not having to do the whole lap to pace first?
Yeah, that happens, of course, but now you always have to remember that the same thing happens at places like Road America too. It's incredibly quick and short. In fact, I remember during an IndyCar race, we had a couple of the actual IndyCar field in that race, and I believe Sage Karam accidentally put himself into the wrong mode on the starting grid, which was basically after the kink down by Canada, right? So tiny little amount of lap to actually pace through. Stalled his engine. Couldn't get started again. They don't have a starter on those cars, so
Yeah, but
short pace laps will get you.
yeah, but think about all the tracks in iRacing where we don't have this short lap, like a Watkins Glen or a Coda. I think I'm pretty sure Coda doesn't have one either. It's just the longest, slowest, like I don't even know. I was gonna call it an Uber driver pace, but that's not even. It's not even that. It's slower than that. I don't know, but yeah, I'm just happy to see these short pace laps. I want to bring it up because I thought it was a cool thing. But see the grids lined up here. This is the front of the first grid here that we're seeing some of these awesome paint schemes and liveries, as we call them on the roadside.
Certainly are. I'm looking forward to seeing how this race goes, of course. But I tell you what, I need to be one of those Ubers you've been in because apparently they're really fast over there. But the pace car's moving off now, and we're going to get ourselves ready for some serious Canadian racing here. I hope it's a lot like Canadian bacon. I quite like that.
It's not a. It's just ham.
No, is that just? I don't know. I like thick bacon. Okay, it's gammon. We call it gammon over here. But either way, racing. I'm digressing quite a lot. We'll move back on the topic of racing before I start thinking about ham. Terrible thought for a Jew, but never mind. Moving on. Matt Smotherman leading the way for the field here in the pro category for the GT3. And we've got Greg Meismer leading up the GT4 cars. Pace car will dive down pit road and we'll come through the final chicane here. Past the Wall of Champions, which has eaten many a race car. Bunching up for the start, and we'll get the green flag just about. It's a super late run to the flag, actually, for me. Are they going now? Green flag flies. Behind them as well, we're starting to get the movement from the GT4 field as they go as well. We'll watch our pros dive into that first chicane section here for turn 1. Through the 180-degree right-hander here. Good pacing. Separation by Chris Walsh and Matt Smotherman already. Making a good early leap into this second drop down now. Tricky corner to get wrong, because if you mess this one up, you will go into that wall. Behind them, Meismer and the GT4s coming up as well now. Good separation there. No incidents so far from any field. Derek, this is definitely a better start to the lap that I've seen at this place. I've seen them piling up already in other races.
Yeah, that definitely can happen, Rachel. As you said, look at the camera shots we're getting from up above here. Look how narrow this track is. That's something you pointed out during the pre-race. It's so true. This is a lot more narrow than some road courses we can think of. But watch them coming through here. Oh, see, there they are up in the curbs. Just like I said, Rachel, they can do that in these GT3 cars.
Oh yeah, as a former Mercedes driver in the sim, curbs are my best friend. That's how you turn in that car. But yeah, no,
Is this turn 10? Sorry,
yeah, turn 10, the big hairpin down here at the bottom. One of the slowest corners on the track for the drivers as they get ready for the fastest straight on the track here, leading them all the way up to that final chicane in towards the Wall of Champions and the pit road entry. Pit entry here is very easy. It's just drive straight, but remember to brake. That's the important part of that thing to get right. If you don't brake, it will be a very short race for you. But we'll see that first lap completed now, and the drivers will come through, ready to complete that one. And looks like Smotherman's had a strong first lap, already gapping Chris Walsh.
You know, and what you said kind of sounds funny on the premise of it, of remember to brake. But that's one of the hardest parts sometimes about road racing is you get on that straightaway, especially in the GT4, which is a little slower, and you kind of want to zone out. And oh my gosh, next thing you know, you're up in that corner. And you're right, if you're not on the brakes properly, these two long straights don't have nice, braking assist points, or, you'll just hit a wall.
Yeah, you absolutely will, and you've really got to be very careful with that to make sure you are doing it the right time and place. We see it happen in races all the time where people will just brake slightly wrong when they're in traffic because you can't see their normal reference points, or they're not expecting someone's braking point to be different, and we see those collisions that can occur because they might be slightly different in their nuance. Maybe a different bias means you brake differently to somebody else. As we're seeing now, Smotherman is still making that gap grow, 1.1 seconds at the moment. Walsh has a good gap over Nelson behind him. So we're seeing good separation forming in that pro category as these guys really push the numbers now. Coming through turn 10 yet again. Love this corner. Absolutely beautiful place to probably sit and actually watch these races from on track. We've got a great view of so much happening there. See some of those GT4s coming through now as well as they come down towards that run. The big braking zone for 10 here, Derek. Of course, you're coming through here really, really fast, pulling out of that chicane. And you're diving right in here, holding it tight on after the apex, and then braking so hard, trying to set up for as much speed as you can. And getting that apex right for 10 is so important.
I mean, getting any apex right for 10 is important, but you're right, especially the low speed corners almost are more important to get your speeds right out of them than the high speed corners, because you want to get on that gas pedal so hard in a slow speed corner, and you do it wrong in a turn like 10, and you'll just loop the car around if you're not careful. It is really difficult to do. It's a skill that a lot of drivers probably need to practice more, and that includes me, for the record. That's a weak point of mine.
I think we can all find various weak points in our driving ourselves, but looking through things at the moment, we're still seeing some good racing taking place. At Nelson there, you can see on screen, he's third right now. Started fourth on the grid, managed to make it past Martin Wallace. He's slipped back 2 spots right now to 5th place. He's not having the strongest run, but that can change, of course. We've barely passed 5 minutes right now, so a lot of time left for these guys to make a difference. Scott Andrews definitely not finding the time for himself today. He's running at the rear of your GT3 field. Guillemette there in 4th place. Pro beneficiary driver. One of, I believe, 4 in tonight's GT3 field. We have Matt Smotherman, Tyler Guillemette, Hunter Reeve, and we have Scott Andrews. Looking a little bit further back now.
You know, something that people talk about and people ask all the time to us as racing fans. So
that was tight.
That was tight. Sorry about that. I was going to say, something people ask us all the time, I think, Rachel, when we talk about racing and multi-class racing, is what is the difference in speed, and how different is it here? So I was taking a look on the side here, my monitor. The difference in the fastest lap between a GT3 and a GT4 tonight so far is nearly 10 seconds a lap. I think it's a 134.9 versus a 143.6 is the difference in the fastest GT3 and the fastest GT4 so far tonight. So just to give you at home a small example of what we're talking about in speed difference, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, it certainly is. And there's a big difference. We will see that lapping begin to take effect and have a big impact here. We're seeing Smotherman coming out already from the second chicane there, and our rear markers for the GT4s are just about leaving turn 10, so they're going to be on top of them real quick, real soon. They're just leaving the third chicane now, so it is a corner and a straight away from having us already into the lapping of the field, which is going to be interesting. Again, this is not a wide track, and making those places count in the right spots is going to be important, but we know the GT3 cars have so much more get up and go on the straight. A lot of their advantages in that straight line, not the corners necessarily. This is a grip cornering track, not a downforce cornering track.
You know, and that passing between a multi-class racing is difficult, and it's difficult for both people, Rachel, because most times the quote-unquote slower class doesn't want to be in the way. That's the last thing they actually want, is to be in the way and to affect the faster class. And the faster class just wants to get around them as fast as possible. And so if you're not careful, both people try to help each other, and in fact, all they end up doing is hurting each other in the process sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be a major problem for these drivers when that does occur, but Of course, we've already got one down pit road, actually. Trying to work out who that is right now. Trying to establish our first driver down pit road. Not sure what they came in for, but we
I
will
see that
find out.
Felipe Carrillo has been down pit road already. So has Rick.
Yeah, Carrillo.
Haslett.
That was him just now. Yeah, Carrillo is
Okay.
just in pit road. I think we actually are just about in the window here. So you could fuel up fully and go to the end from here. So this is one of those situations where super early is not the worst idea.
No,
But I think most of our field will go super late.
And actually, it's a strategy that I've been talking about with teammates over the weekend. Of course, iRacing just did the 12 hours of Sebring virtually. We were talking about, is there value in being off cycle like that? Is there value in coming in first and maybe avoiding the traffic while pitting? Maybe that's the strategy here for Felipe, is just to see if he can do something different. Sometimes different is better, and I guess we'll find out later on that.
I guess we will, and it's going to be interesting to see. But I do think most of our field, historically, have always gone towards the end of the run. This is very much a stop and go, grab some gas, get out of there, sort of pit stop. It's forcing strategy, but I don't think it's necessarily going to have an impact where it comes. So most drivers will put that off to the latest possible point, unless, as we've seen in previous rounds, you can benefit from some clean air. If you've been fighting someone, that could force you to stop a little bit earlier just to get it out of the way. But it does have benefit, and of course, stopping later means your car will overall be lighter, and therefore potentially faster, because you're refueling with less fuel than you need to get to the end, rather than fueling up early and having more fuel for longer in the race. So it'll all factor in, I think.
As we're watching on track here, something that came up amongst the drivers in practice as I was listening in, Rachel, was talking about the hairpins in this corner. And I know you've driven this track more than I have. They were talking a lot about the hairpins and how they want to keep it in third gear. They said if you get down to second gear, the back end just wants to come around from you. So from your experience in driving this track, what's the danger of getting in too low of a gear around some of these hairpins?
Of course, the biggest problem there is over traction. If you could spin out really quickly in these cars, and getting too low a gear, too low speed, trying to put too much gas in, it can really upset the car, especially with these curbs. A little bit of looseness and you will go around, and if you do, you're not going to be going off track. There is no off track. You will be going into the track again, and that just makes it really spicy for the other drivers. But we'll keep our eyes throughout this field, seeing what's happening right now. The gap opened to 2.4 seconds between Smotherman and Walsh. Walsh used to be the king of the pro class, but since Matt Smotherman came up there, it's been a different story, and he is keeping this thing alive at the front. Big gap there, but speaking of which, Chris Walsh hits pit road at the 10-minute mark. He's going for a different strategy. He's hoping to lose less time lapping traffic by basically resetting his position to them. Interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing this does is sort of the opposite of what you talked about. Some drivers love to drive on light fuel loads, Rachel, because they think it makes the car faster, and it does. But some drivers prefer to keep a full fuel load as long as possible because it really helps stabilize that car. It makes it feel more normal. Let the fuel burn off at the very end. That's the flip side of what we're talking about. So, here's Chris Walsh. Is going to come down pit road. At some point, I do want to show this pit exit, by the way. It's kind of sketch, honestly.
Yeah, it really can be. It's a very tricky pit road for that. It looks simple, but it can really bite drivers. But I'm wondering if that was Chris's logic, I think, there, that he chose to come to stay away from traffic. It might be a really good call. Matt Smotherman, of course, probably going to go to the last 10 minutes as we expect, but that's an unusual decision. I'd love to find out more about why he chose to do that, but it's given him a lot of clean air ahead of the car to really focus on putting laps in, which could be a big difference maker if he can hope Matt will get bogged down in traffic on a tight and twisty track. Matt, of course, currently heading up the back straight. He's basically already dealing with lap traffic, so this could be a factor for him.
Yeah, this could be a factor. Sometimes that lap traffic just holds you up and really actually just kind of gets to you, not because of doing anything wrong, but because you just want to go and go and go. And so, big wide track, and that's so close to the wall right there, Rachel.
It absolutely is, and I think that would definitely play a part in this. But you've got to be careful with that wall. It will eat that car up and spit it out the other side. Matt Smotherman there. Again, here he is with traffic ahead of him. We'll see how he deals with this. We'll stay on board with Matt Smotherman right now, watching as he comes up behind that machine. I believe... I'm trying to work out who that actually is right now in front of him.
That is Brian
Knight
Knight
got
right
there,
ahead
and
of
he
him
just
there.
gets through. Knight gives him the room, and through he'll come down towards that second chicane there. Easily done it, but again, you get that car at the wrong place, Derek, and that's big trouble. That's time chunks eaten away.
Well, yeah, I mean that too. But did you notice, Rachel, how fast the closing rate was between those two cars? It felt like one was on the brakes way sooner, and they were. Don't get me wrong. But the closing rate difference between those two cars right there was massive. That's what makes multi-class racing challenging for the faster class. Is you have to remember these guys don't brake when we brake, and you end up running someone over by accident here. Watch as we're going to ride along in this car here. Big wide turn there.
Yeah, trying to use as much of that track as possible just to kind of build as much speed as we can see. I'm seeing Kyle Smith hit the road right now as well. Just up ahead of the car we're actually watching now. But yeah, you want to try and use as much of that room as you can, because obviously it's a tight, slow corner. So the wider you can make it, the faster you can go through it. And it will really, really eat things up, because you almost have to kink back again from turn 10 as the exit kicks onto the straight there. You've got to kind of come around that little bit of a left. So the car does need to come back somewhat to the left-hand side as you're turning, so it's a very almost figure-8 type maneuver to perform. Looking through things now, though, time is still ticking down. Smotherman has not considered pit road yet, and we don't think he will for a while. Neither have the GT4s. Oh, problems! Oh, that was Glamet getting turned around on the pit road exit, because I guess people didn't realise they were quite a bit more solid than they thought. As the car behind him, that was the 93 machine there. One of the GT4s, Kyle Smith, pulls out and performs the best pit maneuver I've seen short of a state trooper.
I started to say literally a pit maneuver.
Yeah, pit successful.
Let's watch along here. This will be from Kyle Smith's point of view. That's, you know, what's interesting about that in some ways is, like I was gonna say earlier, I was thinking about talking about that backup camera or that reverse camera they have, or the behind camera, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that was just I don't know. It's just one coming in. I guess he was coming in. I don't know. Here's the tricky part about this, Rachel, and here's why this is hard in iRacing. There's a certain point, especially to our camera bottom of those white lines, where that's basically a no contact zone in iRacing. Sometimes it's hard to guess whether or not you're going to make contact with someone coming off a pit road, and sometimes you scare the whatever out of yourself because you think for sure you're going to hit someone, and you just kind of like go straight through them, you know?
Yeah, you do, and this is why keeping an eye on a relative is very important, as well as your mirrors and other factors in the car. But it happens. Racing stuff does happen. I don't think that was anything intentional by any party involved, but there are state troopers shedding tears of happiness having just watched that on our screens. They are taking notes, people. They've got their ticket book out there, making little notes and diagrams right now to try and do as good as that one. That was beautiful.
And you know what? Let's come back and talk for a second, though. We've been talking about weird pit strategies and being on pit road alone, and why and how and who and where. That's a great example, though, Rachel, of why different pit strategies are useful. That was just a pure example. It happens in NASCAR all the time. One guy coming into a stall, one guy leaving a stall, and they make contact just like that. That's why alternate strategies can be so successful in races like this.
Yeah, but in real life, the cars are solid the whole time. Let's be honest. We all
sure.
know that in iRacing, you can drive through people's pit boxes and people's cars in the pit boxes. People get a little bit too used to pit road being a very safe place and don't consider when they're pulling out just what's going on. They're just focused on their pit stop and then getting back racing again. And it kind of happens robotically, so it's one of those things where the mind kind of steps away a little bit. Looking back, we've got a good train actually forming back here. A lot of cars together on the racetrack, in fact. I think some of these are our GT4 machines. They are indeed. Got Brian Winker in there, Brian Knight. We've got Haslett involved in that as well. Big bunching through turn 10. Most cars I've seen in one place there. There's about 7 of them.
Yeah, a big bunch of cars. There's a GT 4 and 3 mixed together. Right on board here. This is Rick Haslett. This is turns 13 and 14 right here. This will take you down to the straight to the I guess what you call the front straight. This will be the start finish line, and then we'll head up to turn 1 here, start it all over again. So if we can keep on board here, Rachel, I want to show real quick here. This will be turn 1. Just going to give you this the scenic tour. Now here's turn 2. Now watch off to your left, folks. Up here, just about, not here. Here comes the exit right there. That's pit road exit right there. They merge in right there. That's one of my least favorite pit road exits in all of iRacing.
Short of, I think, the Belgian one I keep forgetting the name of, is Zolder. I think it's Zolder. Yes, Zolder. And possibly also sometimes... I don't really like Cota's pit exit, to be honest. But there are worse. This is definitely one of the worst ones, as we're still seeing Walsh go in second place. Smotherman, I think, has hit pit road. We think he's definitely changed his timing. Looking at his laps, actually, we'll take a quick look at that. Yeah, he's got a longer lap, so I think he did hit pit road there as well. So we'll see what this does to our order, but I believe he's a lot closer now to Mr. Walsh. In fact, he is. They're back together. In fact, the gap has closed. Chris Walsh's clean air strategy might have actually played him some good here because he's eaten that time down.
In fact, I can tell you, Rachel, just based on timing and scoring, that I believe Brian Knight is the last driver to not pit as of this point. So, I mean, we're 21 minutes in. There's only 9 minutes left in this race, roughly. A little, I guess, 11 minutes left in the race. Sorry. But Brian Knight, I believe it to be the last one to pit. Everyone else is now down Bend Pit Road, or is there currently? Oh, there it is.
Real busy on pit exit. We just talked about that, and yeah, traffic merging into traffic on the apex of a corner definitely throws things for a loop, and it makes things a little busy. And that's between Chris Walsh and Matt Smotherman at the front of our field, making things a little difficult. Well, by the way, we are just past the midpoint of the race, and people are pitting, so we'll do this now because we've been a little excited covering some of the pit antics happening today. But we have our beneficiary spotlight for this race, and that is Matt Smotherman. Now, according to Matt in his own words, he originally listed in April 2005 and attended basic training in AIT at Fort Benning, Georgia. After spending 2 years as an infantryman in the Oklahoma Army National Guard, he attended Officer Candidate School and received his commission as an engineering officer. In 2011, he deployed to Langman Province, Afghanistan, with the 45th Infantry Brigade as a route clearance platoon leader. And while leading combat patrols, his vehicle was struck by IEDs on 3 separate occasions, and his injuries ultimately took him off combat patrols. He remained deployed with his unit and later received a Purple Heart and Bronze Star. After returning from Afghanistan, he went on to serve as a company commander and staff officer in various roles. Combat injuries eventually caught up, and he medically retired as a major in 2011 after 16 years of service. He has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a Juris Doctor, and he's now closed down his legal practice, but he's been taking time to be with his wife, invested in his mental health and physical recovery. During his time, he found iRacing to be more than a hobby. It's been an invaluable outlet, and as a long-time fan of motorsport and die-hard competitor, it's been an exciting and engaging way to participate in something he's always loved. But more importantly, it's become a safe haven for exercising healthy focus and self-discipline, while offering a new challenge to him and help him develop himself in this chapter of his life. Organizations like Operation Motorsport, it's been so much better for him because he's been able to be with a group that are like-minded and share more than just a love for racing. I've got to say, Matt has one heck of a story and a great testimony for Operation Motorsport and what they do for people, but hats off to the route clearance guys. That is, for those who aren't aware, the guys who would be out in front of convoys, or the guys, they'd be out in front of EOD, clearing a route, checking for IEDs, booby traps, mines, because an IED planted out there, it wasn't just on its own. They'd plant stuff for the guys coming to defuse it. There would be tripwires, there'd be mines, there'd be all sorts of stuff waiting to catch EOD. EOD were their favourite targets of the Taliban and the various groups in Iraq. Hats off to that role. Hats off to Matt Smotherman.
Hats off to that role indeed, Rachel. That's a very brave job. As you talked about what it involved, I was like, man, I respect and also don't envy that job because I don't think I'd be brave enough to do it, but I'm glad these guys are. And you talked about the camaraderie of Operation, Motorsport, what these guys do. These guys race in this league, they're here to have fun and whatnot on these Tuesday nights, but these guys do other events together. They do the 12 Hours of Sebring together. They do the Daytona 24. These are friendships they form that exist well beyond just this Tuesday night event. So that speaks to the strength of this. I mean, we're into many seasons of this now. So hats off to what this organization does. It's very, very good at what it does, and it's very honorable. And I'm glad to be here with you, part of it.
Certainly is, and I couldn't agree more. Well, looking at how things are going on track, that's the 84 machine there.
So,
although I may be smoking something. No, that's Mass Muffin, the 84 machine. Sorry, there we go. I was looking down my list of entries of numbers, and I'm like, why can't I see 84? And then looked right to the top. So that'd be why that day was being special for a moment. But Matt's time, 2.2 seconds. It hasn't grown back to what it was over Chris Walsh, but it's actually has grown. It's 2.9 now, according to the tracking. That gap remains the same as it was almost at the start of this race. He's really not able to be caught.
So I wanted to give you some data that we were talking about pit strategies and what happens. Let's talk about it real quick. Box versus box time. Smotherman versus Walsh. Smotherman 13.3 in the box. Walsh 9.9. So whether that's a difference in how much fuel they needed to take, or it's a difference in just comfort, I don't know. But that's a big gap here of those two times in the pit box.
Yeah, it certainly is, and wow, we've seen that strategy. It almost played, but it didn't quite play right. They closed up, of course, after the pit cycle, but I think Matt's just on-track pace is fantastic. We've seen him run other cars, and we know he's got pace, and he's great with traffic, so I think against any other driver that might have worked more successfully, but I think against Matt Smotherman, just not going to really fly. Looking back towards our GT4 field, Greg Meismer still leading the way for all of the GT4s ahead of the open class as well. Melarano still leading for them. Behind him is, I believe, the car of Matt Ayotte. We've got Jake Porter, Brian Winker, Kyle Smith, Rick Haslett, Brian Knight, Felipe Carrillo, and Elliot Whitfield, the last car in the field there. But we've really not seen a huge amount of change. It does seem as though this track is tricky for passing.
Yeah, a lot of times for road courses, these long straights can make it tricky for passing, and we're going to see a pass here. Speaking of which, this will be a multi-class pass here. Come up in someone, I believe.
Very much so. Well, we'll have to see. But finding a way through is always trickier than it seems. Looking for an opening there just can't quite... This is what we mean about getting stuck with traffic. Finding a way through at a place like that is very difficult.
Yeah, it definitely can be very difficult to find your way through there. Be over here. Go. Nice job. That's Tyler there in P6.
Oh, we had one go right. Oh, Walsh spun out in turn 1. He was trying to find some time, I think, but he came through the first apex. Try and get a replay of that for you on the screens, but he 180'd that thing, just narrowly missing the tire barriers there.
So what's going to happen
now.
here?
This is him from the start.
Too much curb right there. Oh, too much curb twice.
Wall of Champions. He was quick through there. He's clearly pushing things. He's trying to build that time, gain speed, and try and cut down the gap to Smotherman. But watch here. A little bit too much curb, and you see the car bounce, and he just keeps it away from the tires.
Yeah, it's a great recovery there. It's frustrating as a driver when you do that because you're losing time and whatnot. But a great recovery not to hit the wall, as you said there. Just being aggressive, wanting to gain time, this is a tricky 1-2 corner that requires a lot of discipline, Rachel, to get through cleanly, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Well, Rachel, a little less than 5 minutes left. Overall, a pretty clean race so far. We've seen a couple spins, but no big incidents that we've seen. Knock on wood. But yeah, it's been a good race so far. I'm curious if anyone can make a big pass here. I think Smotherman probably has this race locked up, though.
Absolutely does. Sorry, just going over some pit road stuff with Chris Ramirez there. But yeah, it's been an interesting race. We've got Chris Walsh coming back down pit road here. This might be a retirement. I don't think he's going to change tyres, and he didn't get any damage, so I would be shocked if he did. Yeah, we got him on pit road there. He's stopping and come back out again. So interesting decision.
I wonder if
Not
he.
sure what he's doing.
I wonder if he didn't get quite enough gas the first. I don't know. That's a very.
No. I think he maybe that bounce did something to the car that we didn't see.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, maybe, apparently I'm being told by Gary he had a 9-second stop, quicker than most people. It might have been too soon and too little. Yeah, that could basically be our description there. But unfortunate for Walsh, he was fighting so hard, but now Smotherman largely unchallenged at the front. Nelson 8.5 back from him as Meismer, again, really, really strong run by him. Big gap over Melaranio. Melaranio, big gap over Porter. The leaders of each class, huge separation here.
You know, I want to take a second as well, Rachel, if that's okay. I know we're about 2.5 minutes left here, and put over iRacing for a second. In our most recent updates, they have given the drivers a new in-house fuel calculation tool that's doesn't just auto fuel full every time now. It'll actually tell you how much fuel you need, and that's awesome to see that implemented right into the service instead of a third-party add-on. So that's a cool tool these drivers now get to use, where it'll help estimate for them how much fuel they need. It's one less thing to worry about as a driver, one less piece of math to do, and that can be so beneficial sometimes when you're behind the wheel.
Yeah, it really can do. And the math, whilst driving and whilst trying to get a car around this circuit over and over again, it can really be difficult. You've got to really think ahead for these things, and it does require a lot of planning and practice and running laps. And we all know the iRacing fuel meter can... Oh,
hello.
That's a problem, and that's...
Yes,
I
it's
think
not Farm Sim. Oh, my... hold on.
Hold it, buddy. Hold it.
Overall, a pretty decent save, Rachel. Like, I mean, yeah, there might have some wall contact there, but that could have been way worse.
Oh, watching this
Watching
back again. That was fantastic driving there.
Like you took a mowing contract in Farm Sim. What happened here?
Yep. Cut the grass. Oh god, wall. Oh god, wall. Oh, saved it. That was fantastic.
That's a 9 out of 10 overall as far as the save is concerned.
No. That's a full 10. That was the sound effects there. Sorry about those, but that was fantastic.
I mean,
the 93 car. That was some.
So here's the preface. What happened here. I think actually is he got behind a different class car, and I think he got surprised by the closing rate and kind of lost it there. But yeah,
I think someone needs a new race suit after that. Oh, that was fun. Yeah, white flag we think coming up now. We've got 30 seconds on the clock. Smotherman's crossed the line, so this will be our white flag lap we're on now. For him, Meismer is in turn 10, so he will, I believe, catch the flag before he crosses, so he will. We'll see another lap by all our leaders and the rest of the field here. It's been an interesting race. We've managed to put nearly 20 laps in for this one. In fact, we will have hit 20 laps by the time we get to the end here, Derek, and they've really put some good racing into this one. It's been a very interesting story.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting race, as you said. I mean, very clean overall, but some good, exciting multi-class racing. Some different pit strategies to focus on. This was a very exciting 30 minutes overall.
Certainly was, and looking forward to seeing what they can do next week, of course. But we've still got plenty of race left to go in this one, as we have Smotherman coming down to 10 now, and there's traffic ahead.
Well, that's what I was going to say, and it's not totally over yet. If I was Smotherman, I would just back up here. I would not even bother multi-class racing. I have plenty of gap back to P2. Just let up here and just don't risk it.
Absolutely, you don't want to do that
nope,
at all.
Not Smotherton.
I think he's been let through there. I think Smith is a little bit done with being dramatic after that save.
Yeah, little show shock.
Just don't screw up here. Just don't screw up here, Matt. You see how gently he took that last corner? I've never seen someone be so tiptoe around Wall of Champions and then roll across the line. Well done there by Matt Smotherman, taking the win here for the pro beneficiary field. Ed Nelson now coming across the line to take the pro field, technically. Second place overall. And we'll see Meismer now coming down towards turn 10, with Melarania behind him, coming through the final chicane. Or third chicane, I should say. Greg Meismer there through 10. Car ahead of him. That is Scott Andrews from the Pro Beneficiaries. We'll now see Greg Meismer now coming up this long straight. great run by him. He's not been contested for that spot the entire race long, so an undefeated run there in the GT4 field for Meismer. A great job indeed. Through the last chicane for him as well. Those big curves really make the World Champions jump at you a little bit quicker than I think most would expect. Everyone taking a victory wiggle down the front stretch. And across the line for him. Milaranio just through the final chicane now. He will track out and come across the line as well to wrap our 3-4 class leaders for today's race. More of the cars coming up now as they come through. Definitely been an interesting one. Trickier on passing, I think, than every circuit we've had this season so far, Derek. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the drivers and what they thought of this race tonight.
Yeah, hearing from the drivers is one of the best parts of the job we do as broadcasters, I think, Rachel. Getting to talk with them and kind of hear what happens in their head. I'm looking forward to as well to see how they felt about tonight's race.
Yeah, we certainly will. Well, as that wraps things up for the moment, I think no further battles I can see on the track. We'll go to your finishing order. Coming home with the win tonight, Matt Smotherman with Ed Nelson in second place. We have Hunter Reeve in third, Martin Wallace fourth, Joe Steffel fifth. Chris Walsh, unfortunately, comes home in sixth, with Tyler Gillett in seventh after his pit road incident. Jesse Elliott in eighth, Scott Andrews ninth, and Greg onto your GT4 cars. Greg Meisman from the beneficiaries. They're leading the way with Nick Milaranio for the Open class, Matt Ayotte from the beneficiaries, Jake Porter from Open, Brian Winker from Open, Kyle Smith and Rick Haslett and Felipe Carrillo. Behind them is Brian Knight, Elliot Whitfield, Chris Ramirez. Which I believe makes this the second podium for Brian Knight, coming home with a third place there. We'll get to chat to him again. We told him we would. Well, with that in mind, we're going to have a chance to chat to some of these drivers. We'll wait for Matt Smotherman, but first up we do actually have Gregory Meismer coming in to chat to us. Gregory, do we have you?
Yep.
Well, a fantastic race there today. You led the entire GT4 field for the duration of that one. Tell me about how it was for you.
This track is difficult.
Yes, we noticed.
It is just it's hard to hang onto the car. The cars don't have any grip in their current setup. It was rough.
So, what was it like in terms of traffic around here?
I didn't see a whole lot. I mean, maybe I saw a couple, but I got caught in straightaways, so it didn't really affect me too much.
It's always beneficial, of course. How has it been lapped around here?
As long as you stay out of the way, it's not too bad. You know, it kind of sucks when you get caught in a chicane, but right after the chicanes here is long straight, so they usually can get by pretty quick.
Certainly is. And what was it, just out of curiosity, obviously you're not taking any tyres during a stop this short, but is this a particularly heavy track on tyres for the GT cars?
I didn't notice too much tire wear towards the end. But I think some of the other guys did. For me, it wasn't too bad.
Awesome. Well, anybody like to give a shout out to or thank?
Yeah, you guys for putting on the broadcast. Sorry, they're talking in the race chat. Operation Motorsports for putting on, all of this. My ZFG teammates, Kyle and Martin, and PTSD Foundation of America. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Gregory Meismer, coming home today with the win for the beneficiary field.
Thank you.
Well, next up we have Matt Smotherman, who was our pro beneficiary winner and the overall field winner tonight. Matt, we speak again. Mr. Smotherman is muted, so he can go back downstairs until he's willing to talk to us. Next up, we will chat to, I believe it's going to be Senor Ayotte. And Matt Ayotte, will be standing by with Derek Watson.
Matt, good job tonight. You had a awesome race here at this track. You finished third in the GT4 class overall. How do you feel about this track? What was your expectations coming into it?
Bonjour. It went really well. I felt it was a good, smooth track. I got a lucky break this morning. I had a good practice session with one of the pro drivers, and put some of those skills and practice into place, and so I felt pretty good about it.
So what was it like dealing with the multi-class traffic tonight with this narrow racetrack?
It was pretty all right. I think you have to accommodate the pass a little bit more for the GT3s. Sometimes you don't go full throttle down the straights, or set up nicely into so you can tuck in behind a GT3 as it takes you on the inside. But if you're thinking about that and you plan for it, it's usually not that big of a deal.
Fair enough. Well, strong third place finish tonight, Matt. Anyone you want to thank or say hello to?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak out to my French colleagues there. Bonjour, si t'écoutes, viens-t'en rentrer dans la course de iRacing avec nous. On est toujours ouvert pour les vétérans. But yeah, thanks. I want to speak out to all those guys that are starting in with our new, or not new, but growing sim racing team. We've been doing some endurance races, and some of those guys coming into that are doing really well, and it's nice to see.
Matt, well, good job at third tonight, and we'll look to see you next time.
All right, thank you. Have a good time.
Thank you. Good night, Matt.
Well, last but not least, we have Brian Knight again. Brian, a second podium.
Yeah, you're as surprised as I am.
Absolutely not. I've been expecting this for some time. A busy race here. Definitely a tricky circuit for it. How was it tonight?
Yeah, it was really slick. Not a lot of grip in the Merc tonight, and a lot of corners that you could have lost it. So my goal was to just keep it on the track and not smash it up. I think I could have placed one position better tonight had I put a little more fuel in. So I had to make an extra pit stop because I was one lap short.
Well, it certainly makes things a little bit tricky, doesn't it? Just what is it like dealing with traffic around this circuit?
Are you kidding? Like, it's crazy when those GT3s. I would watch, in the relative where they're at, and you would just start seeing them coming up, and I'm like, okay, I got 17 seconds until Matt's on me. Oh wait, hold on, now that's like 5 seconds. Oh God, here they all come. Like, let's just try and stay out of their way, not cause a wreck.
Well, certainly seems that way. Well, congratulations. Who'd like to give a shout out to or thank?
Obviously, you guys for doing this, Operation Motorsport, USO for allowing me to run a car for them, and this whole community. Honestly, just did the 12 hours of Sebring with the Opmo team, and me being a rookie, not really understanding. Like, they were just awesome to wrap your arms around and say, just coach you through it and kind of talk you through it. I don't think you can find a better racing community.
Yeah, I could absolutely agree with you on that front. Well, thank you for joining us, Brian, and congratulations on third tonight.
Thanks.
Well, last but not least, as we don't have Matt here because he's still muted and doesn't want to talk to us, we have got the winner from the pro field tonight, Ed Nelson. Ed.
How's it going?
Going great. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful now.
Well, second place overall, but winner of the pro category. What was it like out on track there tonight?
Low grip, very little front end grip. The car seemed to push a lot. It just seemed like there wasn't enough weight on the front end of the car with the low fuel.
That's an interesting take, yeah. Obviously, it's a tricky circuit. It's quite a tight circuit, confined, so you're finding the car's not wanting to rotate as much as it normally would?
Correct, yeah, and I tried moving the brake bias to the rear and just about spun out, so I went back the other way. I figured I'd rather have it understeer a little bit versus snap oversteer. So yeah, it was very sketchy in the beginning, especially with Tyler right behind me, because I know how fast he is. So I was just hoping to kind of put some distance between him and I, and maybe see Chris Walsh and Matt with some binoculars.
Well, you got to see Chris eventually as you went past him, so there is that.
Yeah, his car, it did something weird.
Yeah, we
in
gathered
turn
that
one.
same impression.
Yeah, he went over the bump, and I watched his car just shoot towards pit lane. I was like, what is happening to Chris? But I was struggling with my paddle shifters tonight. I don't know what happened. It wouldn't upshift. It kept getting stuck. So I have to take a look at my wheel and see what's going on. Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Well, we hope you get it fixed. Anybody like to give a shout out to or thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for doing the broadcast, and then my teammate Joe Stiffel. Him and I race together, and we're in Discord all the time. We race quite a few series, so it's always fun to race with him and get to practice with him. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Ed Nelson winning the Pro Field, coming second overall. And now, last but not least, the man who came first, Matt Smotherman. Welcome back. Matt, are you alive?
I'm alive. Can you hear me?
Hey, we have Matt Smotherman. Well, he's quick on the track, but he's slow on the microphone, so that's okay. But we've asked everyone else how the track was tonight. I have a different question for you. The curbs at Montreal.
Oof.
What part do they play in your race?
Disrupting.
Avoid, use?
I found that the fastest way to go around the track seems to be to use them, but I could never seem to find the best way to use them most consistently. You just have to be really careful and respect them, because if you get a little bit too happy with them and try using them too much, your car's going to go bouncing all over the place and then you lose control. And the tolerances are so tight on that track that you're going to end up in the wall for sure.
Certainly does seem that way, of course, and it's always been one of those major factors, having been the NASCAR variant that we have on the sim, rather than say the Formula One variant. We had some guys mentioning tonight the car felt quite pushy, quite tight, because of the low fuel, because it's such a narrow, confined circuit. Was that a factor tonight?
A little bit it was. I know a lot of the people were talking about how, especially with the grip on this track and the tires getting burned up, it's so important to be able to get out of the corners quickly and get that corner exit acceleration. And the Porsche, thankfully I picked the right car, I guess, for this track. It can put the power down very quickly, and so I was able to kind of get away earlier on. And I think that worked out to my benefit. But the car itself, I mean, I know a lot of the setups have issues. I might have picked a good car that has good setups as far as the fixed setups that we're all running and stuff. So I think I have benefited there. But I do know what they're talking about as far as the track.
Well, that's certainly very good to hear. And I don't know whether or not I knew this before, but we, of course, had you as our beneficiary spotlight tonight. And I just want to say a personal thank you for what you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Because the job you actually played definitely kept me and some of my people safe in the past. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'd do it again. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Well, before we let you go, anybody you'd like us to give a shout out to or thank?
Operation Motorsport, because I'm getting my activation as a beneficiary kicks off tomorrow morning as I head out to Sonoma. So I'll get to watch Chris Walsh race and do a whole bunch of work up in race control there. So big shout out to Operation Motorsport, both for the league and for everything that they're doing for the beneficiaries like myself.
That's awesome to hear. And you know what? I'm betting Chris Walsh will be really happy. He'll get to be in front of you this time.
Of course.
Thanks for joining us, Matt. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well, folks, that is everything we have for tonight, as always. Of course, we couldn't do this without serious partners of Operation eMotorsport iRacing League, iRacing, and the USO of North Carolina. For Jason Leach, Diesel Loader, Chris Ramirez, and the entire Operation Motorsport team. For Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore at Podium Esports, camera builder Dougie Beard, our producer Gary Sexton, Cameron Obenon on social media, and my colleague this evening, Derek Watson. I'm your host, Rachel Wyford. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of Operation eMotorsport. Wow, I'm having a stroke. eMotorsport iRacing League. We'll see you next week at Sonoma. Good night.